Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve taper. Taper basically being slowing back the throttle on the QE purchases. And basically, I got something I was looking at from several people. Well, Bill Gross is even bearish on the bonds now too, but there's other people out there saying that we're probably going to have a 25 to 50% pullback in the markets in later 2013. So, what's going on is the Fed is not actually going to taper back the QE program because of inflation is low. It is low. It's like unlike when they did their QE program back in the 70s, the inflation went way up, and then Paul Volcker basically pulled it back really hard, with the interest rates. We're not really experiencing inflation right now, but the unemployment is high, and the economy is slow, but they're still going to pull it back for this reason, is because it's creating bubbles, speculative bubbles in the financial markets, and they realize that the Fed, like Mark Faber criticized the Fed that they're going to create unexpected consequences and bubbles. The Fed realizes this too. It's almost like, you think the one people are evil and the other ones aren't. They all kind of realize it. The Fed is actually trying to do a pretty good job. And, it's quite obvious that people that are shareholders in the Fed want to make as much money as possible too. I mean, it's kind of more like that versus a rigid conspiracy against the masses per se. But the Fed is going to start tapering back because it's afraid of the consequences that it can make by creating speculative bubbles in various parts of the financial markets, just like they did in 2007 and early 2008, and everything crashed. So they're going to start pulling back, and they expect basically a 25 to 50% correction in the equities markets in later 2013. Also, cash may be king again. That was one of the earlier predictions of 2013 I read on somebody put out. I forgot who it was, but cash would be king in 2013. Now, the other thing I was thinking, though, is, the policy with Bank of Japan, though, is so radical that I think it's not, like gold and silver aren't really doing so bad in Japan, like over the last couple of years, the way it is doing in the U.S. dollar. Because the yen, even though it's like going up, going down, basically over the last couple of years, it's been getting weaker. And gold and silver, basically in terms of price of yen, it's not doing that bad over the last couple of years. Not the way it's getting hammered in the U.S. dollar. But I think the policy of Abe, what his name is, Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, whatever it is, his policy is going to be very bad for Japan long term. And it's going to turn out that he's going to ruin Japan, but it's going to be very good for gold and silver, and that's actually going to play out over here in the United States and everywhere else in the world too. QE is going to be the policy all throughout the world. And the thing is with the U.S., when they do this taper, I'm not sure what it's going to do to the metals, but I think there's other factors going on that are going to cause the metals to go up, like the policy of Bank of Japan. Things like that, even despite the U.S. maybe tapering off the QE, but they're going to do it slow. There's some people that speculate that bond interest rates can go up to 5%, but then, there's others saying that they're not going to be affected that greatly. But the fact that globally, everywhere seems to be currency wars, where everybody's trying to devalue their currency to boost exports, that's got to be bullish for the metals in the long run. And I want to leave you with this thought. This is a piece of paper, right? You got these bonds and you got these currencies. They're all on paper or they're on plastic. Now, this is a piece of metal, right? Which stronger, metal or paper? I'm going to leave you with this explanation. That's one way I put to it, because one thing's got power, and the other thing, I know they say the pen is stronger than the sword, but that was written by a guy that freaking wrote a lot of stuff with pens. It wasn't written by a shooter, you know what I mean? So I have to leave you with this. Metal is going to outweigh paper any day, in real terms too. It's going to play out because basically we got a very, very, very top-heavy economic financial system, and actually the whole economy of the United States is top-heavy with not just financial people, but with not just government people, but actually bureaucrats that are going to have to comply with governmental laws. It's like our nation, the reason our economy is bad, and the Federal Reserve has got all these tricky policies, but the reason our nation is actually bad economically is because a lot of the labor output and actual intellectual output is geared to complying with governmental bullshit regulations. And I'll tell you, that's actually really the problem with the economy all the way. Excessive regulation to the max. So common sense 101 goes a long way. And stick with your metals. This is a piece of paper. These are metals. It's got steel, lead, copper jacketed, and all that type of stuff. Metals are stronger than paper. Don't buy into that bullshit that, the pen is mightier than the sword. That ain't true either. You can write in lead too, right? Just remember that. So this is my unique update for the economic situation today, but I only put things in common sense. Only. And, despite all the things they say about the Fed policy is this, the Fed policy is that, U.S. exports are this, this problem is this, and all that problem, the real problem with the United States economy is actually not the wages of the people. It's not the wages of the labor. It's all the efforts and intellectual brain power that has to go into complying with governmental regulations. That is freaking 90% of the problem out there. So, we don't need all this bullshit. In China, they got the deal where it's like, just do it. The hell with it. That's if they go back to that in the United States, no problem, and they start growing hemp in the United States to solve all the carbon problems and the global warming bullshit problem, and we got all our problems solved. But basically the same for the end of 2013. Possibly it looks like a 20 to 50% correction in the markets due to the federal gov taper. They're going to back off the throttle a little bit. So, we shall see. I think that's pretty accurate, but stick with the metals because the metals are no BS, and paper basically is BS. That's how I look at it.